Hey everyone, this is Helena Hart, and I'm here with my friend and fellow coach, Jack Butler, again today. Jack is an amazing relationship coach who helps people become more of who they are so they can be their true, authentic selves and be loved for who they are in a relationship. And we are super excited today. We're going to be talking about the number one thing you need to reveal to a man in order for him to truly fall in love and want to commit to a real relationship with you. So Jack, thank you so much for being here again. I'm so excited and I can't wait to dive in.
Totally. I'm really looking forward to diving in, and thanks so much for having me again here. Always love it to be on your channel.
Yes, this is probably one of the most important things we could ever share with the
I
amazing,
think you're right.
yeah,
Yeah.
in the community. So yeah, let's just get right into it today. What is that thing that women need to reveal in order for a man to truly fall in love?
Yes. So this is an invitation for you to reveal what, in my world, I call your essence. And what that really means is actually the true you, the real you, right? Beneath any performance you might be doing, beneath any games you might be playing. Just this sense that actually, if the right guy is going to fall in love with you, he's going to fall in love with the real you. And you need to show him the real you in order that he has the opportunity for the right guy to be magnetized to the real you. So in some ways, that's a really simple proposition, but often what gets in the way is that we don't either trust that we're enough, or that we don't trust that if we really show ourselves that the guy is going to hang around. So there's a real kind of vulnerability in the invitation that we're making here, but we're also saying that that's actually your best strategy long term, because it will filter out the wrong guys and really allow the right guy to say, oh, I really see you and I'm in love with that. And that's what I want to be in a relationship with.
Yes, I'm so happy to be talking about this. I think this is really important because there's a lot of coaches and gurus out there teaching games and superficial strategies,
Right.
and you just can't keep that thing going forever. And then it kind of breeds
Exhausting.
insecurity. Like, well, maybe he just is in love with me for this like mask that I have on, or this. I know you talk a lot about personas, which we can get into a little
Yes.
later in this video, but it's so important and it can be hard sometimes too, right? Especially when you really have strong feelings for someone. There's this tendency to want to be perfect and like say all the right things.
Yes.
And I hear that all the time. Of course, we all feel that way sometimes. What do you have people do who are like in that place where they want to be more themselves, but they're having a hard time doing that?
Yeah. So I think part of that is trusting that actually who you are is kind of the full deal of being in relationship. And kind of what I mean by that is anytime you're doing the things that you're talking about there, right, where you're having to be a perfectionist, or you're being a pleaser, or there's certain parts of you that you're really keeping hidden from view. If those things are deal breakers in your relationship, I'm kind of here to say just bluntly, this isn't your guy, right? That's the maneuver here, is to say, oh, if it's the right guy being in a relationship with me, he's got to love, or at least learn to love over time, me in all of these places that are real me, including where I'm frail, where I'm weak, where I'm neurotic, where I'm vulnerable, where I'm wounded, because we all have that in us, right? So this kind of takes the pressure off that you've got to show someone your best side. It's actually saying, no, show them you. And then from that place, you'll actually get the right information about whether this is someone that can be with you longer term. The challenge with, if I'm only showing up with the best side of me, is exactly what you've just said, is that I ultimately don't really know where I stand with this guy. For example, classic example of this is models, right? People who are always referenced in terms of how they look. It's very hard for them to trust that actually someone wants to be with the real them, not just this amazing facade or beauty that they show the world. So this is saying, oh, what's actually beautiful about you is the signature flavor, essence, aroma, fragrance that is the kind of the core of you, and that's what you want to start bringing fully into your dating. Even if it makes it a little harder on the front end to get into relationship, it makes it easier to be in relationship longer term with the right guy.
Yes, there's a million questions just popped into my head right now. So I'm trying to like sort
Good.
it all out. What, um, there's so much we hear this thing. You're so, oh, just be yourself, right? Just be yourself.
Yes.
And
Yes.
there is, in my mind at least, a distinction between, well, are you being your true self by leaning forward and trying to make something happen constantly with a man? Or is that just kind of like a symptom of some kind of unhealed thing, like an anxious attachment style tendency
Totally.
or something? So, like, where do you draw the distinction? Because, I talk so much about feminine energy and leaning
Yes.
back and kind of just like being in the moment and letting things unfold, which feels really unnatural at first. It feels like you're not being yourself by doing that. But right.
Yes.
And
That's
maybe,
a good distinction.
yeah,
Hmm.
but I think it is actually connecting to your true self, and it does become like second nature once you try it. Do you have any thoughts there? I'd love to hear them.
Yeah, I really love you bringing it in, because that's a nuanced distinction, which is to say there might be habitual ways of being that feel very natural to you that may kind of be rooted in a wound, or maybe rooted in not feeling safe, or kind of just rooted in, oh, this tends to get results with guys, so I've kind of been doing it, but it might actually be a little bit of a performance. So we don't want to set an impossible standard here. This is very much like I'm on the journey to being more of my, essence or essential self. It's not like you have to be that today and suddenly figure it all out, but just kind of notice at the end of the day, if you come back from a date, notice kind of how you feel, notice where your energy is, notice where you maybe said something, but it actually didn't really feel that it was authentic to you. This is an invitation to bring more of your authentic self to the table. And part of your authentic self will include the places where you have an anxious attachment, right? We're not saying, oh, you need to pretend you don't. We're actually saying, kind of bring the realness of that. Be working on it. Be working to relax it. Don't be just at the whim of it. But it is very much a work in progress. And I think this sort of teaching, it particularly applies if you know that you kind of go around with an image that you present to the world, but you kind of get that underneath that there's all these other things that seem kind of messy that you don't show the world. This teaching will be really powerful for you, right? Because you mentioned personas. What we don't want is that your hero persona, right? The one that you think is great, or that uplifts people, or that cheerleads them, inspires them maybe. That is not the only part of you, right? We all have other parts of us. So we don't want to be just hypnotized to our own ideal self or hero persona. We actually want to learn how to include some of the places that we're kind of dark, or we're kind of messy, or we don't really have it all together, right? You kind of want someone to be able to fall in love with the one in you that doesn't have it all together, that doesn't have to work hard every moment to persuade someone that you're good enough or valuable enough, and permission to be on the journey of doing that. Because if it's been your past, you won't be able to relax that immediately. It will take time.
I think that's so great. So important to mention. Something I always say is men fall in love with you for what you perceive to be your flaws or
Right.
right?
That's
What
a
makes
great way of saying it.
like
Yeah.
a million little things that you don't even know you're doing. That's what makes a man
Yeah.
fall in love. Like, he might admire the fact that you're strong and independent and really
Hmm.
smart or successful. Like, those are all such great things, but he falls in love for those vulnerable sides. At least that's what I've found. Have you found that as well?
I think that's actually quite accurate. Yeah. And and maybe another way of saying that would be, uh, it can be easy to fall in love with the light side of someone, right? The sort of, let's just say the super smart, successful side of someone. And it's a little more challenging sometimes to fall in love with the darker side of someone, right? The places where they're hurt, or they're wounded, or they feel insecure. And that's why that's such a good read on, this is the kind of guy that I want to be with, right? If a guy can only love you on the light and can never be with you in the places that are harder, that's not really going to work longer term, right? You're not going to really feel a permission to keep bringing those messy parts of you forward. And you kind of want that permission, right? That I can bring those forward, and he's still going to love me. So this is why I'm talking about, essence as filter, or vulnerability as filter. It can be vulnerable to be vulnerable in dating, absolutely. And you might come across a guy who really rejects you when you're vulnerable, and that could really sting and hurt and have you want to close up and never do that again. I want to encourage you to say, hey, there's a big girl in you that can take the fact that the wrong guy might only be magnetized to certain parts of you and not include all of you, but the right guy, he's actually going to want to include all of you. Not to say that you might not have challenges and things to work out together, but that's like, it's kind of like throwing down the holy grail of saying, here's me. And you don't need to do this on the first date, right? This is like in the unfolding of a connection with someone. But if you kind of say, look, here's me, this is what, loving me is loving all this. And so if you want to be in a relationship with me, this is what it really looks like. And I want the same thing for you. And that's such a powerful stance to be in relationship from, because you don't have to hide from yourself, and you don't have to hide from the other person. And we've all probably had those experiences where you're like, oh, if only you knew, right? Or like, yeah, I'm kind of putting on my brave face, but like backstage it's kind of like carnage, and I don't really want you to know that, right? And that's particularly true even in our world, right? Of YouTube personalities, of people who have this amazing YouTube persona, but backstage, let me tell you, even the most together people have a shit ton of stuff backstage, myself included, right? So let's just throw that out there. There's no one perfect. There's no one who's got it all together. There's no one enlightened. There's no one that we're putting on a pedestal. We're saying real human beings and really loving each other from a vulnerable place is difficult, but it's so worth it. That's my take on this.
Ah, so true. That is so true. Yeah, and it can be hard to do that. I have a real easy time doing this in friendships and romantic relationships.
Yes.
I have a harder time with it like on YouTube for whatever reason. It's like something there's this filter that I'm trying to work on it, but that's been a little bit of a
Well,
challenge.
good on you. Good on you.
Yeah,
That's like, that's like a little quirk of you, and that's a beautiful thing, right?
oh yeah, I never thought about it like that. But then people get to know me, whatever. They're like, oh, that's what you're like. You're just kind of like chaotic and all over the place. And
Awesome.
I have a perfectionist side in work, and that
Yeah.
yeah, and that's okay. But that's not what makes men fall in love, right? It's that vulnerable kind of quirky, just the things that make you unique, the things that set you apart from every other woman on this planet. That's what I've found, at least. I've had men tell me,
Yeah.
when asking like, what was it that made you fall in love? It's just like, well, you seem like someone who really needed love. And I'm like, wow, that's shocking to me. It wasn't because of X, Y, and Z. So
Yes.
just things like that, just these little
Totally.
things that I would never think of. So
Totally.
I think that's great. I mean, something I always say is, if you're truly confident within yourself, like, what's your philosophy on life here, right? If you know that things are always working out for you, that of course, if you have a desire for a great relationship, that's a guarantee to you, and it's just right on its way to you. You can really do this. Like, you can just be authentic and be confident. And I've said on a second date with something like, oh, I really like you, and just being open to saying that, because what's the worst thing that could happen is they don't feel the same way. And if the reason
Right.
you like them is because they're acting loving and wonderful and their energy is coming towards you, then who cares? Like, what's the worst thing that can happen? You get rejected, and then if you know what I mean? If you're truly confident, if you're putting your own desire for a great relationship
Yes.
ahead of your desire just to be with this one particular man, you can do anything. You can really
That's a
do
good way of saying
whatever you
it.
want. And
Yeah.
guys are gonna love that. They're gonna see that and want to come towards you if they're the right one for you. I believe. What do you think about
Yeah.
that?
I think that's right. I mean, you were using the words, confidence and authenticity. Sometimes I distinguish them to say, part of authenticity is I don't have to be confident when I'm not, right? So sometimes being authentic can just mean like, I'm sad when I'm sad, I'm happy when I'm happy, I'm angry when I'm angry. It's sort of like the simplicity of authenticity is I don't have to stage manage so much. I can be a bit more raw and real with what's actually going on. And for some people that's easier, because confidence for most of us does this, right? You probably have days where you're like, oh my God, I can knock it out of the park. And then if you're anything like me, sometimes you have days where you're like, wow, I don't even know if I can put anything out there today, or I feel tired or ill, or I have a lot of chronic inflammation in my body. So it's kind of like permission to be with the ebb and flow of your own confidence in some ways, that you don't actually have to only be that confident woman. Because here's the thing, most really confident women, if I'm honest, what I've seen is they're super confident at times, but they also backstage, sometimes they're not. You've got Adele, who's an amazing singer, and she's vomiting before she goes on stage, right? That's just part of how it works. So if that's real, that if you were going to be in a relationship with Adele, you wouldn't want to not know that about her. You'd want to be like, wow, she's both this super powerful stage presence, and also sometimes backstage, she's kind of really nervous about it. That's cool. That's what it is. That's what it is to be with her. That's her signature flavor. That's what it would be to love her. That's kind of rad, right? It's kind of rad to be the person that gets the window in of seeing all of that of someone, right? And if you take
Yeah.
the relationship isn't just about a feeling, mature adult relationship isn't just a feeling. It isn't just, I'm always going to be in love every single moment. Mature adult relationship, a lot of it is learning to love better. And you're giving the opportunity for someone to love you in the places that maybe you haven't done the best job of even loving yourself, right? That's why relationship can be healing, because you say, oh, I give myself a hard time when I do that thing, but actually you can love me on it. That's really cool. That's why we're doing this, I think.
So great. I'm so glad you said all of that. Yeah, a question I get all the time is well, I thought men loved confidence, and you're saying be vulnerable. And what I think is it takes a tremendous amount of confidence to be vulnerable and just share
Totally. Yeah. Great.
yourself,
Great.
right?
Yes. Yeah.
Women who are not people in general who are not confident might try to play it cool and act like they have it all together, like you said. And it's kind of obvious now, especially for women who have been watching these videos and doing the work. You see someone being inauthentic like that, they just kind of come across as like stiff, right? And just kind of
Yes.
it's not magnetic versus someone who has the confidence to be vulnerable, and it's just a totally different feeling, right? Uh, I
Yeah.
think you talked about this a little bit earlier in this video, but what would you say about the timing of this? Because obviously there is an unfolding. I would imagine you would want a little bit of it happening on both ends before, if a man's showing up and he's
Mm.
kind of like stone cold, you wouldn't want to just like be super open. But in some ways, I think women do go first a lot of times in this arena, kind of as the feminine energy partner. What's your take on the time?
Yeah. I think I see that pretty similar than I think what you're pointing to, that, um, I'm almost just getting the imagery of kind of like sort of floodgates that just kind of gradually open, right? So you try, you're a little bit vulnerable and you check it out, right? Like, oh, I told the guy that I was, super excited at work today. Sometimes it's easier to share something that's like a positive vulnerability, right? Like a positive emotion, so to speak. Positive, negative, we can get into that, but like a joy or something like, wow, I was so touched, this happened. See how that lands, right? Then at a certain point, we might deepen the relationship by sharing something that's actually tough, right? Like I was really sad or impacted, and kind of see how that goes. And I think you're right that we want a little bit of mutuality in that,
Mhm.
right? If it's all on one side. And yeah, you're right that women in their feminine energy, one of the biggest gifts they're going to bring a guy is their vulnerability, right? As guys, we weren't rewarded evolutionarily for going around and just saying, hey, I'm being really vulnerable, right? That's the edge of development for most guys in this time, where actually our vulnerability and authenticity is more welcome. So absolutely, you can lead with that. What I want to distinguish, some people on the first date will kind of share every wound they've ever had, like the complete life story.
Mhm.
And that, that may be appropriate if you're both doing it, right? If you're just like, boom, we're just connecting super deep, and like I'm telling you about how I was effed up in my childhood and you're telling me that, and saying great. But if that's on one side of the fence, it's not actually intimacy, right? It's kind of like a vulnerability vomit. And that might be stopping you building real intimacy. Most real intimacy is mutual, and it's deepening over time, and it's mutual self-disclosure, right? Not just one-sided self-disclosure. So I think you're exactly right. The guy needs to meet you at least minimally in some of this terrain. Otherwise, it might be that you felt very vulnerable. But if your vulnerability is sharing the same story that you always share with everyone else, I want to challenge you to notice, can you be vulnerable in presence, in
Mm.
the actual moment, and notice, what is this moment calling forth from me? Not just, yeah, I can give you the 10 minutes of, how my dad left and how that really hurt me. And sometimes that's not actually super vulnerable, because it's like, that you're kind of doing a performance.
Yeah.
What's the vulnerable thing that this moment, if you just slow it down and really notice, like, what's being asked for you? Might be to be silent, might be to share something really vulnerable, might be to just hold space for the other person, might be who knows what. But that vulnerability of, I don't actually know what I'm going to say, I don't know where this moment's leading, that is a really priceless vulnerability when it comes to intimacy and the right to be yourself in relationship.
I'm so glad you said that. Yeah, perfect. Because what I'm hearing you saying is there's a difference between I'm going to share this story and strategically be vulnerable to make this guy
Yes,
fall in
it's a
love,
good way of saying it. So
right?
strategic. It's like stage managed vulnerability,
Yeah,
right? Yeah.
yeah. Versus I am sharing who I am and what's going on in this moment, because this is who I am. I'm just an open, receptive, feminine,
Yep. Yep.
expressive person.
Yep.
So totally, I can feel the difference there totally. And so that was a really important distinction, because we don't want people to try it and then go, oh, this didn't work, because it's not about
Right.
did it work or not. It's just this is a whole new way to live your life, right? Outside
It
of
is.
what someone's gonna think about you if you open up a little more, right?
Totally. Yeah. I mean, in my experience, and check this out for yourselves if you want to do this. There's vulnerability can be its own reward, right? By which I mean just that experience of kind of being in the moment, sharing what's real or not sharing or being silent, but like really tuning into what is in this moment. It doesn't often need like the other person to praise you for that. It's kind of like in and of itself, that might just feel good to you because it's like you feel alive, you feel connected, you feel intimate, you feel present. And these are all things that most of us want to feel, you know? And if you're noticing, wow, this person can actually be with me in this space and we can both start to be present with one another and both start to share a bit more what's real, that's priceless. You know, that's like, wow, you could have like a real present relationship with this person. And again, even if you've not tasted this much in the past, that's what most of us want, I think, is the ability just to sit down with someone and kind of be real and be present and share what's here.
Totally. Yeah. I mean, it's also it's probably a topic for a whole nother video, but work with
Yes.
women and talk about how to actually change the type of man you're attracted to, right? And people ask me all the time, like, well, how do you develop chemistry, like real attraction, real chemistry,
Mm,
not this instant chemistry that's kind of hooked up in your subconscious with the wrong kind of guy, where it's not going to
right. That's a good way of saying it.
and that's one way to do it. Just what you said, opening up and just seeing how this guy just loves you and accepts you and wants to learn more about you, doesn't call you crazy or dramatic. He's in there and he doesn't want to change it, that about you. That's how you
Yes.
start to build real intimacy, in my experience, my opinion. So yeah, this is all such valuable information. I'm so glad we're talking about this today. Is there anything else you want to mention around this topic before we close out?
I would just want to invite people to give this a little bit of runway, right? I don't see this as a one-time strategy, like you're saying, like you tried it once, you're like, oh, it didn't work with that guy. Because one, this is a way of filtering out certain guys that may not be able to be with you in this territory. Two, as you kind of alluded to earlier, for a lot of us, rejection is a real thing. And we've got to do some work around rejection, right? Where we can actually have someone not like the thing that we're doing and it be okay. Okay, you're having a different experience than me. That's okay. Your rejection is no longer a survival threat to me, right? Most people have to do that work. Historically, rejection from the tribe, you know, you look at it in most of the animal kingdom, it's a big deal. It doesn't work. You can't survive. Most of us, if someone rejects us, we actually can be fine about it, even if it stings. And being present and vulnerable as you feel it, wow, okay, that stung a bit. And thanks for revealing to me that you're not my guy, right? That's kind of where this sort of territory goes. So you may have to practice this a little bit. Dating can be great practice just to notice, what is it like if I'm just going to try and be my authentic self and I'm not going to try and impress this person at all? What's that like? What's it like if they say something to me that's not particularly interesting and I'm just like, oh, okay, rather than like kind of pretending and kind of engrossing myself. It's like a whole practice to really relax into yourself. And for most of us, the maneuver is actually slowing down, right? For most of us to get closer to ourselves, we actually just need to slow down a little bit so we can sense more, so we can feel more. And dating from that place, it might feel unnatural at first, but it starts to give you a little bit more freedom, right? That you can actually have a silence with another person and it's not the end of the world, right? It's like, okay, I'm okay. Like, I'm okay with me. Can you be okay with me? It's sort of like there's more okayness, and from more okayness, more realness can come out of this. So, this is like a whole different orientation to dating. It's like you don't have to do a particular thing. We're just saying, keep being yourself as best you can, keep excavating, keep noticing, keep presencing, keep revealing. And the more you do that, the more that will become the way of being that you have in life, which is sort of like you get to be you most of the time, more of the time, and now you get to try and do that with someone else. And I'm not saying it's easy. Most of us, it's like it's like I'm wanting to say this is like a beautiful, precious pearl, but it is like a pearl. It's going to be worked, right, in life to develop that beauty. So for most of us, when we start to be more vulnerable, it's not like life just says, oh, great, I've been waiting for your vulnerability. Initially, it might be some pushback. People might not get it. You might not get it. You might feel awkward. It might not land well. All of that stuff to say, just keep at it, because I think longer term, it will take you to somewhere that you want to be, and it will allow the right guy to love you for who you are. And that's the name of the game.
Amazing. Yeah, I can think of countless examples of this, just, stories I hear, things I witness out there in the world. And we'd love to hear from you guys too. I know I've seen so many amazing comments from women in my community who say, I did this, I was vulnerable, and it just took things to a whole new level with
Right.
this guy or in the relationship,
Awesome.
deep in the intimacy. So try it and really try it maybe in low risk situations, I think would be my suggestion, right? Don't go for like the big, heavy conversation in a super high stakes situation right at first. You want to kind of build this muscle. Try it with friends, try it with family members, maybe, right?
Yep.
Yeah, this was amazing, and we'd love to hear from you guys. So try this out. Let us know what you think in the comment section. And really just, you want to reward yourself for doing this, regardless of what a man does or doesn't do with that information.
Right.
Right?
Yep.
Yeah.
It's not about the attachment to,
Let's
yeah,
talk about your
yeah.
free webinar too. I'm going to include a link to that in the description right below this video as well.
Yeah, awesome. So I want to share with your community, we actually have a new webinar. It's called the Relationship Ready Preview. This is your opportunity to learn more about what it is to be relationship ready. And by that, we really mean what is kind of on your side of the fence? What is the stuff that you are carrying from connection to connection that hasn't really been working for you, that if you distinguish it and can relax it, you actually get to be more yourself, and you'll know from this video, therefore be more of an invitation to the right guy. So it's 90 minutes, it's completely free. You just click the link, find a time that works for you in your time zone. If you've previously been on a webinar with us, this is a new webinar. So I'd love for you to come back and spend some more time with us. And we're excited to share this new content.
Yeah, definitely. I'm so glad you said that. So this is totally brand new for you guys. If you've been through the other webinar, 3 Keys to Being Relationship Ready, from some of the other videos that Jack and I have done together, this one is completely different. So make sure to sign up for this one too, because I know you got some great feedback on this one as well, right? So
Yeah.
thank you so much. This was amazing. Let us know what you guys think in the comment section. If you have requests for more videos, we love giving you guys valuable content like this. So thank you so much again. And Jack, thank you. Let's definitely do this again soon.
Hey, I hope we do this again before too long. And thanks so much for having me. And I love that you get into the real stuff on your channel. This is feels like such a beautiful opportunity for me to come and talk with you about this stuff. I'm really grateful for it. So thanks.